Hello, everyone. My name is Eliza Hurtis. I'm a student in the BA660 course of the financial environment. And for this presentation, the case problem that I have chosen to complete part of and present on is the MBA decision from Chapter 4. I thought this case problem was quite fitting for myself as I'm currently completing my MBA. And I remember a time when I was deciding whether I wanted to complete a master's program and trying to decide what was best for me, what college to do it at, what program to choose, if I wanted my MBA, if it would help me in the future. And so I can definitely relate. And you might notice me relating some of the questions to myself in my own personal life because I do remember whenever I was sitting in the same shoes as Ben in our questions. So you might notice that a little bit. Ben is 28 years old. First, let's discuss his age. We can see what his age and his place in life to see how it might affect him in his life. Ben is only 28 years old, as I said. So, since Ben is only 28, he's still very much young enough to be able to go back to school and earn his degree before pursuing a long and fun filled, hopefully, career in his choice of investment banking. He has more than enough time to go back to school, get his master's, and no matter what program he chooses, whether he chooses to go with the Wilton or with the Mount Perry, either one will provide a great experience for him and he should have nothing to worry about. It's always scary to choose a master's program. I remember whenever I was trying to choose one and I was trying to figure out if I was going to do my master's of accounting or my master's of business administration. And I did my undergraduate at SEMO, so I ended up continuing to do it through SEMO. But it is tough to choose because you don't know anything about it whenever you're starting your undergrad and you're kind of thinking in the long run, will I need a master's? Will I not? And then you're looking at it as, am I going to be working full time? Am I going to be working 40 hours a week and trying to go to school? Because how am I going to pay for it otherwise? Luckily, in Ben's situation, he does have some savings, so he's not worried too much about that. But he's thinking, which one's the best for him. There are different cost margins, which we'll talk about later, and different prestige. One is more well known than the other. So this is just a big choice for Ben, but luckily he's only 28 years old and he has the rest of his life. So he should be able to finish his degree in 2 years and by the time he's 30 be completed with it and it'll be great. We are moving on to the non-quantifiable factors. There are some non-quantifiable factors that should be considered. Whether Ben should go back to school now and get his MBA, maybe wait a little bit longer, and especially to decide, which college he should do it at. So the first one would be his own personal growth, and that is probably the top priority that should be considered. Both of the programs that Ben is considering will offer similar growth in academics and the development opportunities, but ultimately he needs to figure out what he's looking for himself and what kind of experience that he's looking to get out of this. Secondly, career networking should be considered. Wilton has a great reputation for being a very prestigious school, and receiving an MBA from that particular program could help him get a better job in the forecast, and we will see that later with some of the statistics that is something that is going to play a factor. Lastly, we can consider his lifestyle. The completion of his MBA, that's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of focus. And so we need to look at Ben's specific life and make sure that he can maintain his happiness and his lifestyle before making any big decisions about whether to do his MBA at all, let alone to decide what school. Make sure that it's a good time for you as an individual to get your master's, because if you can't focus on the master's program, then it's not the right time. Because I will say, just being in this course, being in 3 other courses this semester, it does take work, it takes time, and you have to be able to dedicate yourself to it without having any other distractions around you. And so Ben definitely needs to take a look at himself first and not just at the numbers and figure out if it's the right time for him. Now that we've looked at some of the non-quantifiables, we can start to look at the pros and cons of each. My personal preference that I think he should do would be Wilton, and I'll tell you why. I believe this because Wilton has lower tuition, lower costs, and so we're going to get into some of that. From specifically a financial standpoint, Wilton seems to be the most financially intelligent decision. Wilton does have the lower tuition costs, and he would be able to complete the program in less time. Wilton, of course, through analysis with accurate salary offers, it would be necessary to have the exact numbers before you could make a best financial decision. But based on what we know, the lower tuition, the lower cost of books, the higher salary after graduation that he is anticipating, as well as the higher bonus that he's anticipating. On top of that, we've already discussed Wilton is a higher school of prestigiousness, and so it would just be all around a better fit, I think, if he is looking solely to improve his career. I think that Wilton is the one to go with. I mean, why not go with the school that's going to help you in the long term and also not break the bank quite as bad as a school like Mount Perry? That's one thing that I thought was interesting with this comparison or with this decision is that I felt like Wilton was the clear-cut answer. I didn't feel like there really was a debate or a competition. I mean, the lower fees and the higher ability to get the higher salary and the bonuses and to move up in the career, I think that Wilton is the clear answer, and that's what I've shown here. And of course, like this says, money's not everything. So Ben's statement saying that, the value of each option will, with the analysis, will tell you exactly which one you should go with, I feel like is partway true. You can look at the numbers to a certain extent, but like we said earlier, there have to be those non-quantifiables that play into it. So I don't think that Ben's statement about the analysis, using the analysis to calculate the future value of each option, I don't feel like that's completely true, and I don't think that's what you should go by. I know personally, whenever I was choosing a college, I was going between kind of these out of state options because I was really considering going to Texas for school, and Texas and SEMA were more my Texas A&M and SEMA were my two that I was going between. And whenever it came down to it, I was going to be happier close to home. I was going to be able to come home on the weekends. I was going to be able to see my family. And if I got stressed out, I knew that I'd have my support system around me to where if I were to go 14 hours away, I wouldn't have that. So not only my own personal happiness, but knowing that I wouldn't have to pay out of state tuition and all those things, those all played a part in me deciding to go to SEMO rather than to Texas. And I think that Ben should do a similar look at himself and decide what is most important to him. Doing the future analysis only evaluates the monetary side. It doesn't take into considering the non-quantifiable factors that we discussed earlier. When you're making a decision that could impact not only your financial position, but also your happiness and everything that goes into a day, it's important to consider all of the possible factors that could be affected. Now that we have discussed, why maybe the numbers aren't everything, of course I throw out the numbers. So on Wilton's side, we have that tuition. These are estimated, of course. These are not full sures. I mean, he doesn't even have his MBA yet, so we can't know exactly what his salary would be or what his bonus would be. But these are estimates. These aren't exact numbers, but we'll go through them. So for Wilton, if he were to choose to go to the Wilton school, tuition is going to be around $63,000. To where if we look over at Mount Perry, it's going to be $75,000. So that is quite the difference. I mean, that is a big range. I mean, that's saving $12,000. So that's huge right there. Whenever we go down to the books, we can see that the books, which of course an estimate, you never know how many books you're going to need. You never know how many supplies you're going to need. This is an estimate. will be $2,500 at Wilton and $3,500 at Mount Perry. So right there we have another $1,000 that are going to be different. Now, one thing I thought was interesting was that you never know what programs are going to offer between colleges. Like with SEMO, I was able to get on track to finish mine in a year and a half. So I'm not sure exactly what his forecast for that would be, but just based on as if they were going to be the same amount of time at each, $63,000 for tuition and $2,500 for Wilton, and $75,000 and $3,500 for Mount Perry. As for a forecasted salary once he graduated, and these are both for the MBA, so he has the exact amount of schooling for each of these, which is really interesting because this is a wide range of salary. For Wilton after school, he could have a possible salary of $105,000. That's that big $100,000 mark that everybody wants to get over. I hear it as a tax accountant all the time. Everybody wants to make over $100,000. Everybody thinks that that's that comfort number. Everybody thinks once I make $100,000, everything will be better in my life. So maybe that's what Ben's thinking, and maybe that'll be the right decision. But for Wilton, he could have a projected salary of $105,000, and that is with an $18,000 signing bonus. So that's a very large bonus and a huge salary, a comfortable salary where you probably wouldn't have to worry about anything. You can take care of yourself and maintain your bills. On the Mount Perry side, the salary projected would be $88,000 with a bonus of $15,000. Now, I don't know exactly where these numbers are coming from. I'm not sure if they're just, something that he's heard or something that he's researched, but this is what we were given in the problem. And so, of course, with these numbers and knowing that Wilton is the more prestigious school and Ben didn't specify any exact, things about each that would make him unhappy or happy. I don't know what his personal preferences are. But without those in the question, I would say that Wilton is clearly the more educated decision to make. So my MBA decision would be that Ben should go to Wilton. I appreciate you all for listening, and I'll see ya. Bye.